I'm Aaron.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm John.
On this episode of Battlecries Champagne, alternate versions and outtakes from The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Okay, so on this episode is the You've Been Around episode, which is kind of an appendix to the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars episode. And I hope to do this for every album, because what we just did in the last two episodes, where we covered Bowie's greatest hits and then we covered the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, that's been done countless times already in podcasts. But to my knowledge, there's no Bowie podcast before that has looked at all versions of Round and Round. So that's what I'm hoping is going to kind of set us
all four versions of a specific song that isn't even on the finished album either.
Exactly, right? So
this is beyond deep cuts. This is 10,000 Leagues. Jules Verne would be proud of this episode.
We're going
here.
deep.
Oh, yeah. That being said, if you're not into this really 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea stuff, then that's all right. But I would encourage you to stick around. Maybe you'll learn a few things. Maybe you'll be introduced to some songs that you hadn't heard before, or maybe you'll think about these songs in a different way. If not, our next episode is going to be Young Americans, so that'll be released in a month or so. Today we're going to cover some different mixes, some outtakes, some alternate takes, etc., whatever we were able to scour up, and we'll give our thoughts on those. So I think what we're going to start with, actually we'll start with the song Round and Round. So Round and Round is a cover of a Chuck Berry song that was first released as the B-side to Johnny B. Good. This is obviously a classic rock and roll song. First of all, what do you guys think of early rock and roll, like 50s rock and roll? Where do you stand on that genre of music?
So it's not something I listen to in my spare time all that much. Like, I know Chuck Berry is so influential on everything that would come after him, right?
Yeah.
On the rock music of the 60s, like, wouldn't be what it would be without kind of bootleg Chuck Berry albums getting smuggled over to England and then influencing a whole generation of people there who then brought that music back to America. But I just find it's not quite to my taste. But Johnny B. Good's a great song. Round and Round as a B-side, I don't know, hadn't really listened to it prior to preparing for this episode. I do wonder what about that song grabbed Bowie's attention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love early rock and roll. It definitely has, I feel like the term rock and roll was certainly birthed from the energy that it brought of actual powerful chords and just driving music that made people generally want to dance. And it wasn't the slower, kind of more, slower paced music that had more of a eclectic vibe to it, if you can call it that. It definitely was for the youth, and it pushed a very lively and powerful sound. And I definitely enjoy early rock and roll. I totally see how it influenced Bowie and drew him in.
Yeah, my relationship with early rock and roll is really based around it was kind of like, actually, John, what you experienced with remember when you got 1,000 Miles Davis songs for me?
That was a mistake. Oh, iTunes got me on that one. That was too good to be true. Yeah, bought a Miles Davis best compilation album, which then Andrew informed me shortly after he had much music put out over the years, and so I got 1,000 Miles Davis songs on my iTunes, and so every second song I would play would be a Miles Davis song. I don't dislike Miles Davis, obviously not. I bought his music, but I didn't really want to listen to him that much.
Yeah,
well, back
spliced into all the other stuff.
Back in the iPod Shuffle days,
yeah,
if you had 2,000 songs and 1,000 of them were Miles Davis. And you couldn't choose what was coming up next, right? That was the whole point of the shuffle. And you'd just be listening to a lot of Miles Davis.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. And actually, I think my first MP3 player was just like that. So I think I'd moved on to like an iPod Touch by then. So I fortunately didn't have that exact issue.
I really didn't expect to be discussing Miles Davis.
No.
That's a tenuous link.
Why would you bring back that traumatic memory? Oh my goodness.
Only because that's what I experienced with early rock and roll. There were these two, they weren't 1,000 songs, but they were, I think, like 100 songs each, 2 albums, and they were like $4.99. So I was like, well, you can't go wrong with that. Right? But then it was just so much early rock and roll. So I think this is maybe where you were going with it too, Andrew. It can get like quite repetitive, especially if you like the genre itself is quite stagnant. Like there's not a lot of inventiveness within the genre. There's like, if you like, for me anyway, I picture like this is what early rock and roll sounds like, and if I pick an early rock and roll song, it's probably going to sound like that. It's not going to be, oh, this is a different instrument or this is a different, arrangement. It's pretty.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way before, but I take your point for sure.
Yeah, it has a very specific sound, you're right, and you know what to expect when you're listening to it. Yeah, not terribly inventive in the long run. Of seeing what else has been created since in the rock genre. Yeah, you hit on something there. Definitely a very specific time period in that music.
Yeah, but as Andrew pointed out, it was groundbreaking for the people who were there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the song Round and Round was part of Bowie's live repertoire even in 1964 when he was still with the King Bees. And so the reason why this ended up being included on the original track listing for the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars was because apparently the Spiders were just in the studio, they were jamming, and they landed on this song, which was like, if it's a kind of a rock standard, they all knew it, right? Obviously Bowie knew it well. They performed it. Apparently it went off quite well. They didn't need to do a lot of overdubbing, so co-producer Ken Scott was quite happy about that. And yeah, they thought, well, this is great. And it was only later that they decided, maybe we could throw on another song. But what I find super interesting about Round and Round is that it was actually, I guess, so beloved by the band that they were originally going to call the album Round and Round, which I think is maybe boosting this track up a little too much.
Yeah, it doesn't stand out to me that much. An album built around this song might not have seemed as forward-looking in 1972 as what the end product eventually did. And can you tell us when they cut this from the album, what they replaced it with?
This was in the spot of Starman.
Yeah. So they traded up.
Yeah, right? So you had a chance, Andrew, to listen to both the Chuck Berry version and the Bowie version. Is there any differences that you remarked?
I mean, the Bowie version seemed quite faithful to the original. Like, he clearly appreciates Chuck Berry and just enjoys playing that style of music. So good for him. That's fun to see. I don't think it needed to be on the album. Yeah,
I agree. It eventually did see release as the B-side to Drive-In Saturday in 1973. Yeah, so this song, as I pointed out, has some different versions to it. There's the version that was released as the B-side. Then in 1989, on the Sound and Vision box set, they released an alternative mix. And then on the reissue of the Sound and Vision box set in 2003, they released another alternative mix.
Oh boy.
Were these all recorded in the same time?
It's the same recording. It's just mixed differently.
Yeah.
Now, the notes I took, because I got really into this, is I think none of these mixes does it right. But I think each mix has something that if you combine them into a master mix would be wonderful. So, I think you need the hand claps on the B-side version because they're a little bit more prominent, it's a little better. I think the guitar sounds better on the Sound and Vision 1989 alternative mix. And I would take the vocal and the bass from the second alternative mix released in 2003.
Where the joint was rocking, going round and round.
Because I really don't like that vocal effect that's Bowie's got. It's like, it sounds kind of tinny.
The joint was rocking, going round and round.
But I do like that vocal grunt at the end, which is not present on the alternative mix 1.
It does sound tinny, but is it like that on all of the different mixes?
No, that's the thing, is the alternative mix 2 does not have that effect. So it's just a straight, dry vocal, and it's much more enjoyable. So okay, next we're going to talk about Amsterdam.
And he yells to the cook, with his arms open wide. Hey, bring me more fish, throw it down by my side. And he wants so to belch, but he's too full to try. So he stands up and laughs, and he zips up his fly.
This is another cover. This is a cover of a Jacques Brel song. Bowie had discovered Jacques Brel through his sometime girlfriend Leslie Duncan, who had previously dated Scott Walker, who had just released his first solo album that had Jacques Brel covers on it. So she was apparently playing his album a lot when she and Bowie were kind of seeing each other. Bowie was kind of intrigued by the music, but it was really the next year, in 1968, when he saw the show, the stage show, Jacques Brel is Alive and Well and Living in Paris, where it was, you know, kind of a show built around Jacques Brel's music, that he really decided this was a terrific artist. He was at that time with a multimedia trio called Feathers, and according to one of the members, Hermione Farthingale, the whole Feathers set was really based around Brel. They sang songs like Next, My Death, and Amsterdam. After Bowie split from Feathers, he would continue playing Amsterdam live consistently up until the mid-Ziggy, well, I guess until the US leg of the Ziggy tour, when he brought in My Death again. So there are multiple versions of this song. Authors have noticed that this is kind of a template for what he would end up doing on Rock and Roll Suicide, which, as I mentioned in the last episode, was based on Jacques Brel's music. Amsterdam, by the way, was initially intended for Hunky Dory, and it was recorded during those sessions. It was actually supposed to close Hunky Dory, but it was replaced at the last minute by the Bewlay Brothers. And then I guess Bowie decided he was going to put it on The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. It was originally going to close out side 1, but then that was unfortunately taken up by It Ain't Easy. So, how do we feel about this song here?
This is great. I would really recommend this to any listeners who understand French. But even if you don't, I think you can appreciate the kind of slow build up to this like really tense, almost like I see in your notes apocalypse, and that is kind of the right word for it, right? And that's what the album does as well. So you can see the influence. He's a beautiful singer, beautiful artist. If you can get into the lyrics, like it really brings you to the docks of Amsterdam with these washed up sailors who are drinking and re-drinking.
Yeah.
And Pores of Amsterdam. Yeah, it's really, I can see why Bowie liked this. I mean, I like this too. It's
now, are you talking about the Jacques Brel version of
the Jacques Brel? Yeah.
So that's the live recording.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah.
To me, I the atmosphere on that recording is just fantastic. And just even like that kind of like tape hiss, because it's, you know, early concert recording or whatever.
It goes with the
exactly. It has just such a vibe to it, and like that accordion and the piano. Oh,
you can just imagine like a smoky bar, because it doesn't sound like a big crowd.
No, yeah.
And I don't know if that's the way they recorded it, but it sounds intimate.
Yeah, you don't have like the Beatles fans screaming,
no,
where you can't hear the musicians anymore. What do you have to say about the Bowie version?
I also really like the Bowie version.
Can I ask, did Bowie sing his version in French?
No. The lyrics were translated for that stage show, and then so he just picked up those lyrics.
Cool.
Yeah. But these lyrics actually are translated pretty faithfully.
It's a pretty faithful rendition. I think he's really leaning into that build up and that sense of tension, right? Oh, it's a great rendition. It's a very faithful rendition. In fact, both versions are. The Sounds of the 70s version, you see that build up even more. And I'm conflicted about the addition of the guitar.
Yeah.
Because I listened to the Jacques Brel version first, and Scott Walker did a great version of this too, with this really emotive, like that. He's got an incredible voice, Scott Walker. And then Bowie, I really like the BBC version of this, the version where he's adding the guitar.
In the port of Amsterdam, there's a sailor who drinks and he drinks and he drinks and he drinks once again. He drinks to the health of the whores of Amsterdam.
Changes it. I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's different.
Yeah.
And I having listened to the naked versions earlier, I think I prefer those.
Okay, nice. My favorite version is that first BBC session from 1970. I find that he is just so emotional throughout, whereas in the other later versions he's kind of restrains himself and allows himself to have that catharsis towards the end of the song, which, you know, some people prefer for sure, but I really, that the first version I heard of the song was that BBC 1970 session, and so to me that is the one that I naturally gravitate towards.
Oh, he drinks to the health of the whores of Amsterdam, who've given their bodies to 1,000 other men. It's the bargain, their goodness, their virtues all gone for the few dirty coins when he just can't go on.
The song was, the version that was recorded during the Hunky Dory period was first released as the B-side to Sorrow in 1973, and I prefer that mix over the quote-unquote early mix that later appeared on a Ryko reissue of Pinups. Okay, the next song we're going to talk about is Velvet Goldmine.
I'll be your king volcano, right for you again and again, my velvet gold mine. Oh. Shoot you down, bang, bang.
This song was recorded during the Ziggy sessions. What I find interesting about it is that it introduces, well, I didn't really know this when I was looking at the lyrics, but I only knew this from looking at Bowie's notebook at the time, that Master Zip that's referenced in the lyrics once,
Right.
apparently is a character in the Ziggy
Is he?
mythos.
Is he referenced anywhere else in
He is
the...
not.
Okay,
But
so this
there
is
were-
a very niche...
Exactly, but
Yeah.
there were other notes in that notebook about things being around Master Zip that didn't make it onto the album, like other songs.
So
and
he's
stuff.
hooking up with Ziggy,
I'm assuming so.
I guess?
Yeah.
Because this song is very clearly, for anyone who hasn't listened to it, I mean, it's about oral sex.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not subtle.
No,
right?
no.
Like, you know, I think Bowie's a good lyricist. This is like, I don't think it's his best work.
Would you say that in that scenario that makes it that Master Zip is perhaps the dom and Ziggy is the sub in that that relationship?
That's a good point.
I just interpret Master as like, you know, that's going to be the dom.
I think so, because the lyrical thing that I kind of noticed which was interesting was that he says in the song, let's see if I wrote it down. Hopefully I did. Yeah, so he says in the song, "You'll make me jump to my feet," which I kind of thought that sounds like in Moonage Daydream when he says, "Make me jump until the air," right? So if Ziggy's saying, "Make me jump into the air," and then here he's saying, "You'll make me jump to my feet," then I feel like, yeah, Master Zip is the Don.
Perhaps.
He's like standing to attention.
Yeah. And then actually another thought I have is, well, if he had like characters in the mythos here, was he drawing out like sketches or like the little notes about like who's what? And like it sounds like there was a much grander kind of like background that Bowie was imagining in his head, which is wonderful. Like it gives the character the album a whole character behind it.
Yeah, this song was eventually released in 1975 as the B-side to the re-release of Space Oddity and Changes as a single. What's interesting here is that Bowie used this as kind of the beginning of the wedge between him and RCA Records, his label, that eventually would culminate with him leaving the label in the early 80s, because he said that he wasn't consulted about the mix and the release of the song, so he was very upset about that. What I find is contradictory towards that is that this song was initially supposed to be on the Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, and on those master tapes that were released in 2022 or 2023, that same mix of Velvet Goldmine is there. So he would have approved it in 71 and then just forgot about it probably by the time 75.
It's possible that 4 years later he had a different take on what it should sound like.
That's also true, yeah. But it's not like he was completely blindsided.
No, he would not have been completely blindsided by that. Would you have taken It Ain't Easy off the album? Because I know what you think about that, and put this on instead.
Okay, I agree about the lyrics. They're, a little much, but I love the instrumentation on this song. I think it is, basically it's the Ziggy version for me of Queen Bitch, where Queen Bitch is kind of anticipating Ziggy Stardust. And then here, Velvet Goldmine kind of draws back to Hunky Dory, because it's got that kind of bouncy piano in it that is reminiscent of that. And I love those insane backing vocals and that what I would call like a Cossack hum at the end, where just this really aggressive humming. I think that's fantastic. Like I was ironing clothes earlier today, and I was listening to that, and I was humming along and like doing the I think that's just so fun to sing along to. Like there's not many songs like that.
You know, it is fun. I agree. Musically, there's a bit of a cabaret thing going on here, or like almost like a spooky side to it. Mm-hmm. It does feel different from the rest of the album, so I can see why they took it off.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that it doesn't stand on its own. The part about the Cossacks featuring there, I hadn't picked up on that when I listened to this.
Yeah,
so
that's just what I picture when I hear that humming. It just sounds like this group of Cossacks just
that's a funny
surrounding
image. In the back of the cabaret.
Yeah,
no kidding. How did they end up here, right?
Yeah, and I'll just quickly mention something that's very disappointing about the later mixes of the song, both the 2003 mix and the 2022 mix, is that they bring that humming and especially that laughter way down in the mix, so it's almost inaudible. So again, that's one of my favorite parts about the song, so I am kind of disappointed in that choice. So to me, the best mix is that original mix that was released in 1975. Holy Holy.
Nighttime, give me back the nighttime. I don't want to be an angel, just a little bit evil. I feel the devil in me.
You know what? Holy Holy, to me that one kind of fell flat.
Okay.
I didn't find it that interesting.
Did you listen to both versions, like the earlier?
I did. The 2020 version felt a bit more complete, but it's still a skip for me.
Okay. Yeah, so Holy Holy was a song that initially Bowie released as a standalone single in 1971. He was working with session musician, bassist, and producer Herbie Flowers, who Herbie Flowers had been talent spotted by none other than Paul McCartney back in 1967. And then apparently, according to some Bowie lore, his first recording session was Space Oddity. Anyway, he had some success with a group called Blue Mink in early 1970. So Bowie's manager at the time decided to hook Bowie up with Flowers to produce what was hoped to be a hit single. And the publisher for Bowie thought the demo of the song was fantastic. Herbie Flowers was less enthusiastic about it. He didn't have much to say about the song, but it was still like apparently there was no tension during the session. It was a classic British Union session where they did the backing tracks in the morning, they did the vocals and overdubs in the afternoon, and then mixing in the evening. So it went pretty smoothly. The press release said that Bowie and Flowers were going to start a new partnership. They were going to work together a lot. They never worked as a producer artist again. Herbie Flowers did return in the Bowie camp as a bass player a little bit later in 1974. But I agree with you about Holy Holy. I think the early version that he recorded with Herbie Flowers is not enjoyable at all.
Holy, holy, hold on to anyone, hold on to anyone, but let go of me.
The mixing is horrible on that song.
It's not lyrically interesting at all.
No, exactly, yeah.
There's no story.
No, there's no story. Some Bowie authors mentioned this is the first time that Bowie mentions Aleister Crowley, which would become something he would become a little bit obsessed with during the Station to Station era, and he also referenced on Hunky Dory as well a few times. Other than that, yeah, it's not notable at all. I find that the 2020 mix of the original Holy Holy is so much better, and it shows you how bad that first mix was, because there's even like a guitar solo towards the end that comes out that is not even audible in the original version, so it's quite nice to hear that. The Ziggy version of Holy Holy is like a little bit faster, but again is not really that interesting. I don't think. Yeah, it came out as a B-side to Diamond Dogs in 1974, but B-side status I think is as good as it gets for that one. Here is the alternative Ziggy mix of Holy Holy.
Nighttime, give me back the nighttime. I don't want to be angel, just a little bit evil. I feel a devil in me.
This one has a lot less vocal effects than the common Ziggy mix of the song, which I kind of miss, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about that.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it doesn't fit the narrative of the album, really. You know, with most of the story, most of the songs telling some sort of story, having some sort of narrative. Yeah, it's just not really part of the overall theme of the album, including It Ain't Easy, which also doesn't have much of a theme in the album.
Okay, so now that we've run through those tracks, I just want to talk a little bit about how would you guys feel about this album if they had stuck to that original track listing? Okay, so the original track listing has the same 3 songs start off the album: 5 Years, Soul Love, Moonage Daydream.
Right.
Then it's Round and Round. Then Amsterdam. That's side 1. Then on side 2, we have Hang On To Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, Velvet Goldmine, Holy Holy, Star, and then ends with Lady Stardust.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like Round and Round would have felt out of place. It would have felt like, I don't recall the exact year that song came out. You can correct me in post if I get this wrong. But yeah, it would have sounded like a piece of 58 in 72. I mean, I love Amsterdam. I don't know if it belongs here either. It doesn't feel like it's Ziggy performing this or in the audience for this or having this sung about him. It's something completely apart. And I know, John, you might have thoughts on this, but Lady Stardust being last.
Yeah, I think
you had advocated for this before, I think.
Yeah, so it totally makes sense to me, and I think it's justifiable. I totally also agree with Rock and Roll Suicide ending up being the actual last track on the album. But yeah, it makes logical sense to me. It's wrapping up. It sounds like it's tying up loose ends in a way, and it, as the album kind of fitting as a ballad, it feels like it's a good kind of culmination of everything. So yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with its placement, and I find it really interesting that it got pushed all the way up to this first song on the B-side. Yeah.
Yeah. My thoughts about this track listing, because I listened to it as this track listing, and something that I remember last time when we were talking about the album, we said that side 1 was pretty slow. Right? Mm-hmm. So actually having Round and Round after Moonage Daydream really helps pick up that momentum, because Round and Round is quite energetic.
Give it some more tempo, yeah.
And then I felt, because I'm generally not a fan of the studio recording of Amsterdam, as I kind of alluded to earlier. I prefer the BBC 1970 version. But in this context, it is kind of a nice way to end the side of an album, Then I think starting off side 2 with Hang On To Yourself, again, a lot of energy is kind of fun.
That's true.
It's how one way we can justify Hang On To Yourself. Yeah. For sure, yeah.
But something that really doesn't work, and again, we're gonna go after Holy Holy here, is that the end of Holy Holy, the drum pattern that Woodmansey is playing, is very similar to the drum pattern that opens up Star. So it feels. It feels like it makes Star feel uninspired, which Star should not feel that way. And it messes up the story too. Like, it's because Ziggy Stardust, the song alludes to that he's kind of falling, but then we're going to Star after he's fallen, which
it's aspirational, right? Yeah. It's about wanting to reach fame. It's earlier in the narrative, and that there's less of a rise and fall going on here. It's just kind of about the band, but there's less of we talked in the last episode about the is this or is this not a concept album debate. I think if it had come out with this track listing, it would be harder to argue for the concept album.
For sure, yeah, because I mean there's already 2 covers on here, right? So it makes it already a little more challenging. So.
Do you think that drum beat transition was really a prime motivator in how they placed those songs in this original track listing? Because you think of like how DJs and how often modern albums are kind of blended song to song, and you can hear it bleed into the next one. It seems like a logical choice in that sense. I'm wondering if that was like the main reason they wanted to put it like that.
That is a good question. I have no idea.
I think, and you touched on, I think Star actually being further up in the album as a more aspirational, like looking forward towards things, definitely makes sense. I find it really cool how 5 Years and Soul Love held their place, and Moonage Daydream all held their place right at the top.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
No, those were like them from the start. That was solid. That's pretty cool how they maintained their place throughout this whole production.
Yeah, so we're getting into the Arnold Corns stuff now.
Yeah.
Precious space close to mine. Freak out in a Moonage Daydream, oh yeah.
What is Arnold Corns? This is a very odd digression, I think.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah, so Arnold Corns basically is a Bowie side project that he had to do because at the time his manager was trying to get him out of his recording contract and get him a new contract with a different label.
Okay.
So he couldn't really release anything under his own name, right? He had just been to America. He had a lot of songs that he now had that he wanted to record right away. Right? That's how Bowie operated. Right. He wanted to get things done very quickly. So he can't do it. So he gets this. He gathers, some members of his demo band. He gathers some neighborhood friends. They form this band called Arnold Corns, which is based on, or the name is inspired by Arnold Lane, the Pink Floyd single.
Oh.
And it's it's a classic kind of project where you're like, I had this great idea, but it does not work in actuality, because Bowie wanted this man named Freddie Buretti to be the lead singer of the group. Freddie Buretti designed a lot of costumes for Bowie in this period. The problem was,
could he sing?
He couldn't sing, and he had extreme performance anxiety. So he couldn't even apparently make a noise in front of a microphone. He was so anxious. So Bowie ended up having to sing on this version of the song because it didn't work out, right?
What a shame.
Yeah.
Why did Bowie want him to sing if this guy couldn't sing and didn't have any desire to perform or whatever? Maybe not desire, but no ability to. That's wild.
Yeah. So the group was maybe also kind of inspired by Bowie's fascination at the time with Andy Warhol, who kind of had this whole company of actors and people that worked for him. And it seemed, because Bowie, for this recording session of Moonage Daydream, he had a very specific way he wanted things to sound.
Right.
And he was, apparently quite detail oriented here, which he wasn't always that way. He even apparently played the drum pattern for the drummer to show him, this is exactly how I want that to sound. And generally he doesn't. There's a lot of stories where he just kind of lets the drummer do their thing,
right?
And then he'll comment if he likes it or not, but he's not very specific about the drum sound he particularly wants. And this song, when it was released as a single, apparently the target audience was underground gay clubs. That was really destined for it. Yeah,
I can see that a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I get some slight sensual undertones from it, but it's not very forward.
Yeah,
it's not like how you describe Velvet Goldmine, for example.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's interesting that you describe this, Aaron, as he's rounding up kind of a bunch of session musicians and sort of just, my costume designer, who maybe or may not have any musical talent. The vibe that I get from all the Arnold Corns stuff is bunch of guys who are hanging out, maybe smoking a bit of weed, and they're just playing some songs. And it's so different from the Ziggy Stardust stuff.
Thank you. More chilled out, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because what's interesting is that even though this Arnold Corns single did not chart at all, had no success, a reviewer, I guess, had noticed this, and when they're writing the review of The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, they say that, Moonage Daydream was previously an Arnold Corns single, but we just slightly changed the arrangement.
Really?
To me, I would say this is more than a slight change.
Yeah, it has a completely different vibe to it.
Yeah, the feeling, is definitely...
This version of Moonage Daydream, he sounds like he's singing from the back of the room. It's just odd a little bit. No, I don't know. Ziggy has more energy, more tension. It's maybe less groovy. Yeah, it's just a different band, right?
Yeah, you totally hit it on the head there, Andrew. It's definitely a lot more subdued. Doesn't have the same kind of energy, the exasperated, like high pitch emotion of what Ziggy Stardust, I guess, became, which definitely like kind of goes in line with the stage name Arnold Corn, which is like the most lame stage name I think I've heard in recent memory. Like that Arnold Corn? No offense to anyone named Arnold or who has the surname Corn out there, but like it doesn't really inspire excitement in me.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, what do you guys think? I do like the ad lib "Come on, you mothers" when he says that. Did you guys notice that in the song?
I don't think I did. No.
Okay.
No.
I like that as like just like a little like "Come on, you mothers." You know?
There was definitely a lot more like the kind of shouting
With the
in
hokey
the background.
vibe.
Yeah, it's definitely like the band's hanging out and like yelling this and that, and it's almost like what you hear in like modern hip hop sometimes too. Like little things just like yelled in at random, just as it's almost like a hangout, a more group thing, and you've got the hype man there or something.
Yeah, it's like
that.
Colt 45 basically.
Yeah, I agree.
The only other thing I want to mention about this song is that the one of the lyrical differences is that when Bowie says "keep your mouth shut," he talks about the world inside as opposed to the world outside, which is I guess more introspective take on things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose he's not saying to look out at the stars, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, I'm in my basement smoking dope. So it's a bit of a different. It kind of goes with the alternative approach to the song.
Definitely.
Do you guys want to continue with the Arnold Corn stuff then?
Let's do that.
I was going to touch
or
on
do you want to...
the instrumental version for a second. This goes with any instrumental song you hear from the vocal version, but like I didn't realize how powerful the strings are in that, and how orchestral it gets, particularly towards the end of the song, and it really builds, and it just has a very overwhelming energy to it that of course comes across in the final piece, but I didn't realize how much the strings played into that. Do you think in production that kind of string element is added later in it after they've made the core of the song and they're like, we could use something to lift it a bit more?
To me, that's the part I find fascinating, is because it definitely was added later. Usually strings are one of the last instruments to be added, but like how do you record a song and like think we're gonna add, like how, like, is it just like when you get the recording you say, okay, maybe we could put strings here, or did you initially have strings lined up and then like how do you imagine
is it part
pieces?
of the plan from the start? Like, do you think like we are going to build this song, eventually we will have strings in it, or is it something that just comes as an inspiration later into the actual production of the song?
Producer says that you need this even if the artist maybe didn't envision that being the case originally.
Either way, I after hearing the instrumental especially, I cannot imagine that song without the strings in it. It just wouldn't have the same feeling. It wouldn't feel as powerful.
Yeah. For me, what I noticed as an important instrument was the bass, actually. I noticed how the backing vocals on the song follow the bass line, which it's hard to hear the bass in the original mix of the song. So that was really a neat revelation for me.
Yeah, very good point. I hadn't picked that out, but you're absolutely correct on that.
I didn't really notice the piano on the album version of this. Then when you listen to it without these powerful vocals, there's little things in there that come out that you didn't quite pick up on the first time. So it's interesting to see the way that maybe helped the vocals, but in a very background kind of way.
What I think is really cool is that we each had a different instrument that stuck out to us in this instrumental mix, which is really cool. That shows that how each musician is really contributing something to the overall piece.
Yeah, and how complex the actual construction of this album was, which definitely falls in line with how different the Arnold Corn versions are from the final Bowie and Ziggy versions. It's just so much more emotional. It has such a high range of highs and lows that just are really brought to life by a lot of the instruments that they eventually brought into it, I suppose.
The only other Moonage Daydream mix that we'll talk about is this mix from 1998 called the New Mix, which obviously has a title as a mistaken title, because what happens when you make a mix after that, you should never call a mix a new mix.
Yeah, poor decision.
Yeah, anyway, it is better than calling it the Dunlop Tire Mix, because that is when it was remixed for a Dunlop Tire commercial in 1998. The only thing that I think is actually interesting about this mix is at the end there are kind of some artifacts that are not in any other mixes. There's some different kind of guitar parts, and then you also hear Bowie encouraging Ronson as he's soloing. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about now Hang On to Yourself, the Arnold Corns version.
My baby got out last Monday, and me, I'm on a radio show. So come on, we really got a good thing going.
This follows the Bowie demo for Hang On to Yourself pretty closely, in the fact that before John had, in episode 2, he'd complained about Hang On to Yourself's lack of lyrical interest. This is even less interesting. And then to me, this is quite terrible lyrics for me. When he says, "My father had a good thing going. My mother had a thing on the street." Now, I think we all learn in English class the word thing. Try to avoid that. Be a little more specific. And here we have it twice in 2 lines.
Yeah, big thumbs down on that one. That definitely is being pretty lazy, not creative whatsoever.
But John, what if I told you could have this with tambourine? Would that?
Holy smokes! All right, never mind. I get a 2 thumbs up on that one.
Like, I know I've already put my thoughts out there on the Arnold Corns era, but tambourine is not a David Bowie. It's not a Ziggy Stardust instrument, right?
No, but it was experimented with so much in like rock and roll of that era. I feel like, it was a hype instrument or whatever. I definitely would take cowbell over tambourine any day. But
you're being more generous than I am.
Oh man, I always think they need more cowbell in every song.
To me, the best part of this version is the coda, like where he's doing like the whispering vocals. I find that kind of interesting, but yeah, the rest is quite you described it best earlier when you said garage band reefing a little bit.
Now I do wonder though, because I had probably listened to the album 20 times before I heard any of the Arnold Corn stuff, so it felt wrong.
Yeah.
but if I had listened to Arnold Corns first, like in the order that this stuff came out, I'm sure that I might have been more open-minded towards it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So now we're going to talk about Hang On to Yourself Take 12, or early session version, which was recorded during the Ziggy sessions.
The bitter sounds much better in a stolen guitar. You're safe when the spiders from Mars. Come on, we really got a good thing going.
This has just some different lyrics to it. Otherwise, it's pretty similar. What did you think?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I would say the fundamentals of what make the song on the album are here just the same. As I think we talked about in the previous episode, there's some references to like the young girl who's hanging around the band. That's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that didn't make it into the album version. But, musically, it doesn't strike me as a huge change.
Yeah, I thought Bowie's vocal, especially earlier on in the song, is a little more campy, which I enjoyed.
Okay.
Other than that, it's... Honestly, if this was the version that made the album, not the other one, I don't think I would.
It wouldn't feel terribly out of place, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, that says a lot all on its own. I don't know much else to add on that, but yeah, that tells you a lot, I guess.
Another Arnold Corns song around this time was Looking for a Friend. This was, again, this kind of shows how Bowie didn't really have a plan for this. So he released Moonage Daydream and Hang On To Yourself as a single with Arnold Corns. It flopped. So he thought, okay, I'm done. I got my new record label. I'm good. But when he signed with B&C label, which released the Arnold Corns single,
right.
it was a 2-single deal. So now he had to come up with another one. So they went back into the studio and they recorded Looking for a Friend.
Round up the session musicians and the guy who can't sing.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Get the band back together.
Oh man, was this a song just for the sake of producing a song?
No, actually, he had demoed it earlier, so it was a song he kind of had in his repertoire that he just decided to use for this this reason. What is kind of interesting is this recording was engineered by Roy Thomas Baker, who would later make a name for himself on early Queen albums. The song was rejected by the label, who described the song as clunky.
Okay.
So they were like, yeah, actually, that deal we signed, we're okay if we break it. Let's not pursue that deal there. So, and then obviously Bowie tried to revive it for the Ziggy session, so there's a Ziggy version as well. Do you have any thoughts on this song?
Yeah, so I mean, I do think there's some fun guitar going on here. I'm assuming that's Ronson. I think Bowie was credited for guitars on this too, but whoever it is, yeoman's work to them. It's kind of funny that I'm assuming he's looking for a boyfriend, but one of his pretties turns out to be straight.
Yeah.
Kind of made me laugh. But yeah, Clunker is fair. Thinking about the Ziggy version, I think it's better. I could see Ziggy playing that track. It wouldn't be one of his most compelling ones. Although I will say there's a line in there, it's something to the effect of like, why are you all having babies?
Yeah.
And I think in the original version, it's like, well, because you should be sleeping with me. But in the context of the apocalypse is coming, why are you having babies? Why are you still having children? Like that, you would read that differently. So it could work as an album track.
Yeah, you've kind of warmed me to this song because it's not one of my favorites. And this is also a song that has countless different versions of it. What do you think? So one of the big differences between some of the versions is the line, "You're face to face with a spaceman on the wall." In other versions, he changed that to, "Standing with your back to the wall, my pretty has a picture, oh so nice, hoping that you might call." Do you have a preference between those two lyrical variations?
I think if it's going to be on the album, probably the former works better. I mean, I don't think either of them is like, Shakespeare, to be perfectly blunt.
That's fair. The only other nice thing about this song is that I feel it inspires Bowie to do some kind of funny things with his voice. On one version, he I don't know if he stutters or stumbles, but I found that kind of amusing. And then on another version, I think this is the Ziggy version, he says, "A real flapperoonie," which is a fun little expression.
Don't you know, baby, look around. I'm just looking for a friend. A real flapperoonie.
Flapperoonie.
Yeah.
I usually apologize when I have a real flapperoonie.
The only other thing I want to talk about with this song is, actually, I think the best mix of the song is a bootleg mix, because that bootleg version ended up on Rock and Roll Star box set. But for whatever reason, even though the piano is in the beginning of the song, you can hear just a little bit, it's mixed out for the rest of the song, and the piano actually adds quite a bit in that bootleg version.
So there's a bootleg version that ended up on a box set.
Well, it's a different take, right? So that take ended up on the box set, but they mixed it differently. So they took out the piano, and I think that is a shame. So to me, the
version with the piano is actually better.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for a friend. I'm just looking for a friend. I'm just looking for a friend. I'm just looking for a friend.
Yeah, I can see how that might. I haven't heard that version, but I can see how that might have helped. Yeah. Fill it out a bit more.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Here's the demo of Looking for a Friend.
God help all you ladies. May the devil help all you men. Far too busy having babies.
Oh, Man in the Middle, another Arnold Corns classic.
And he realizes, and he realizes, and he realizes, beauty ways, please.
Okay, actually, I think this is the
Okay,
best
I
Arnold
will
Corns
say, look, I've made my views about the Arnold Corns stuff plain, but this does feel a bit more like Ziggy, like the guitar there at the end. There's a bit more energy. Feels like they weren't on dope when they they recorded this. No, this is the out of the whatever 4 or 5 Corns tracks we've talked about. This is, I think, the best one.
I agree, and it's also the only one that Bowie did not write.
Is that?
Yeah,
oh,
really?
Yeah.
So this is the Empire Strikes Back of the Arnold Corns. Call back to the earlier episode, but it's kind of ironic that the best Star Wars movie was the one that George Lucas had the least amount of involvement with. Oh dear. I didn't know he didn't write that. That's fascinating, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is some debate. It's definitely Mark Pritchett, one of the guitarists for Arnold Corns, that was involved in writing it, and then Bowie is credited, but he thinks that they just threw his name on the credits just so that it would get a little bit more exposure. Because he's never really owned up to having written the song, and it's never really appeared officially on any Bowie work either. So it is an obscure one. There's of course the Starman single mix, which is really only distinguished by having the Morse code keyboard part being played a little bit louder, which sounds like this.
The Starman Top of the Pops version definitely seems to me like a lot more concise.
There's a starman waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and meet us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds.
It is like a radio hit single. Like, you also have like some instruments and elements of it that feel like they're punching through a bit more, and then like some little instrumentation and so on that actually seems shortened, not in like a bad way, but it definitely feels like it's forced into being a tighter format, and less of a I guess you could say it takes some of the art form out of it when you're allowed to have that longer format. You're not thinking about time constraints, whereas any radio version, Top of the Pops version, I suppose, is that way. You want it to be tighter. Definitely feels like a radio single.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too controversial, but this might actually be my favorite version of Starman. I feel like, because
totally.
what they did on this mix, this is the Top of the Pops version 2022 mix. So they took Bowie's vocal from the Ziggy album and they put it on top of the backing music for the Top of the Pops appearance.
Oh,
and I feel like as you say, it's punchier. It's got such a, it feels even more optimistic than the album version does. I quite like it.
Starman version of Top of the Pops. I do think that the album version, the strings add something, but it works just as well without it. I think that's just personal preference. Like, both versions of this song are quite good.
Yeah, and I think if you didn't know there were strings on the original, I don't think you would miss them, right? Right?
yeah, quite frankly,
No,
I
you
didn't
probably
even
wouldn't.
pick that out. Yeah, you enlightened me to that you're right. It doesn't have the strings in it.
Well, it's like how Let It Be works just as well without the strings.
Yeah,
it works well with it too. But I think you're right that if you didn't know that they were there, you wouldn't miss them probably. Yeah.
It's for a different listening experience. But I agree. I definitely like it. I could see the argument for liking it more than the album version. So, yeah, totally valid. I was wondering where this John Peel comes in. Is that the name of the venue?
It's a radio show that was hosted by John Peel. Yeah,
interesting. Didn't really have any comments about that, but I was just wondering how that was involved. John Peel, Arnold Corns. Are there any other like food themed names involved here? No, interesting. So that was a radio show that was that part of the BBC kind of.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he was he did a BBC live concert, and where he recorded "It Ain't Easy," and that was prior to recording it for the album. This version is obviously quite looser. It's got basically it's more of a group vocal, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have the harpsichord on it. So this is my version of "It Ain't Easy" because the guitar I can tolerate.
That's where you and I are divided. I'm all about the harpsichord.
Okay.
I love that harpsichord.
Yeah. Is this like Let It Be where the harpsichord can be off or not?
You know what? I didn't think I was gonna like this. Yeah, but this version kind of works actually. I have to say I'm impressed. I talked in the last episode about how Bowie changed some of the lyrics, and he talked about like the good Lord, whereas the original Ron Davies one, I didn't have that. And in preparing for this album, I went back and listened to the Ron Davies, which I don't love the lyrics. Some of the Bowie changes I think were improvements, but he does have kind of that gospel choir going on in the background. So I can sort of see why Bowie might have got the good Lord, because it sounds like a lyric that might have come out of the original, right? Yes. So I would say it was illuminating going back and listening to the old version there. Yeah, Bowie's is an improvement.
On 2024's Rock and Roll Star box set, they released take 1 of Lady Stardust, which has a kind of a guide vocal.
People stare at the makeup on his face.
This version is okay. It's interesting that there's more reverb on the snare in this version than there is on the album version. But definitely the demo for this song and obviously the proper studio version are a lot more interesting than take 1. Star has a take 5 version that was released on the Rock and Roll Star box set.
Someone has to blow down Wall Street. Someone had to kill a man. I could make it all worthwhile as a rock and roll star.
This version is lacking the piano, and you really notice how important that piano is towards the song. There's some different lyrics here that are interesting, but again, I think that Star demo is quite interesting, so I would listen to that one before listening to Take 5. And obviously, the studio version trumps them all. Although that demo does give it a run for the money. So those are the different mixes of songs on Ziggy Stardust, but the album itself was remixed in its entirety from front to back a few different times over the years. The first one being in 2003, where Ken Scott was asked to remix the album for the 5.1 surround sound format. A fold down stereo mix of that 5.1 mix was later released on the 5 years box set, and the 5.1 mix is also was on the 40th anniversary edition of Ziggy Stardust and also in the Rock and Roll Star box set. However, Ken Scott is not a fan of this mix. Basically, at the time, he wanted to do 2 mixes. He wanted to do a more conservative one that stuck closely to the original, but just made it fit the 5.1 format a little bit better. And then he also wanted to do a more adventurous one where he could really use the full potential of surround sound. EMI at the time didn't have a lot of cash, perhaps because it was kind of the Napster era in the early aughts, and piracy was stealing a lot of money from these record companies. So they said, we're only going to pay for 1 mix, and that's going to be the more conservative one. So Ken Scott's hands were tied. He worked on it with Paul Hicks, and that's what he did. He was very excited in 2024 when he was given the opportunity to mix the album for Dolby Atmos. For this one, he was working with engineer Emre Ramazanoglu, who has a lot of Atmos experience. Ken Scott feeling that he was maybe not entirely capable of doing that on his own. And their approach here was to make it not too gimmicky. So that's what they were going for. It took about 12 days to mix, which was an ambitious timeline for a Dolby Atmos mix. Usually it does take a little bit longer, especially when working from the stems as they were for this mix here. Something that is noticeably different in the mix, in particularly in some songs, like 5 Years, for example, is that Ken Scott wanted to revisit the drum sound, which is actually something that Bowie himself had commented on in the 90s, where he said that he would actually even give his right arm, that's his words, to remix Ziggy Stardust with the modern technology so that he could add more resonance to the bass and the bass drum. Tony Visconti, a longtime Bowie producer, also expressed disappointment with the mixing decisions on both Hunky Dory and Ziggy Stardust. So what Ken Scott did here is back in 2007, he had Mick Woodmansey come in and record different drum parts for a little project known as Epic Drums, and Epic is spelt with a K at the end, and Drums has a capital S. The K in Epic is also capitalized, so that's Ken Scott initials, the KS there. This recording was done at Emblem Studios in Calabasas, Los Angeles. And so basically, Ken Scott has all these samples of Woodmansey playing drums, and he used this to boost Woodmansey's original drums back in 1972. So it's the same player, same feel, right? But now it can be a fatter, thicker sound. And because Ramazanoglu also is a drummer, he had a good feel for how these things should sound properly. And apparently they spent the most time on the Atmos mix just lining up all those drum samples to the original recording. Because again, back in 2007, Woodmansey wasn't playing the parts on Ziggy Stardust. He was just playing different drum patterns, and they made that fit in the album. So I don't have Atmos capability, and I don't have surround sound capability. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to quickly compare what the full down stereo mixes sound like for both the 2003 mix and the 2024 mix. I'll just point out some things that I found interesting in those mixes. Kind of like what I said earlier when I was talking about Round and Round, there is no perfect mix of these songs. Like for some of them, I think the original 1972 mix is the best one. Others, I think the 2003 mix actually works pretty well. And then again, for others, the 2024 mix seems like the right one. For 5 Years, I think the 2024 mix takes it because the drums it is a drum-driven song, and the drums just sound so great on this song here.
Pushing through the market square.
It is noticeably different at the beginning of the album when you hear that intro, and Bowie's vocal is boosted. The interesting note about the 2003 mix is that the electric guitar in the left channel is given a little bit more space and really seems to be the only dominant instrument in that channel towards the end of the song, so you really get to hear Ronson's playing at that part of the song.
5 years, stuck on 5, we've got 5 years, brain hurts a lot. 5 years, that's all we've got. 5 years.
The most audibly difference, sorry for that bad grammar there, is on Soul Love. Those beginning hand claps sound much fatter than they do on the original mix. And the 2003 mix of the song really is quite bad because I would love to actually listen to this in 5.1 to see if it's just a problem with the fold down, but you can barely hear the backing vocals on this song. Here's an example of that. For Moonage Daydream, however, I think the 2003 mix is quite cool because it's the only mix on which the strings move around a little bit, whereas on the other mixes they're always locked in the right channel. So I think that's pretty cool. It's worth listening to. The 2024 mix, the big distinction there is that there are a few more echo effects. For Starman, both the 2003 mix and the 2024 mix are good, and on both mixes Ken Scott fixed a mistake he had made early on the original mix, where the reverb he had placed on Bowie's guitar cuts out early, and so that's why there's that weird kind of sound in the intro of the song, and here's an example of that. So as you can hear on the 2003 mix that I'm going to play in just a second, you can hear how that's been fixed. For It Ain't Easy, the 2003 mix, the backing vocals are a little bit louder and a little clearer than other mixes. And on the 2024 mix, what I thought was interesting is that there's some piano chords that are missing around the 220 mark. And there's also a bit of noodling in the mix around the 250 mark that isn't in other versions. For Lady Stardust, I feel like there's not really that much interesting going on, mix-wise. So, yeah, there's not much to say about that one. For the song Star, the bass is louder on the 2003 mix for sure. And the electric guitar gets a little bit more prominence in the 2024 mix. For me, the best 2003 mix is Hang On To Yourself because the bass is very clear. It really just captures the energy well of the song. Whereas on the 2024 mix, the bass is not as easy to distinguish. For the song Ziggy Stardust, there's not a whole lot of big changes going on in the mixing, so it's not that interesting. Suffragette City is one of the more disappointing 2024 mixes. The ARP synth is missing at the 240 mark, which is a little disappointing. However, the 2024 mix redeems itself with Rock and Roll Suicide because they have Bowie kind of moving around towards the end of the song, and the strings just sound a little bit more immersive. So yeah, the climax of this song is quite well done in the 2024 mix. Okay, so next we're going to talk about Sweethead, which was a song that was unreleased until 1990 when it was released as a bonus track on the first CD reissue of The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Well, if it looks to love, we can love alright. I'm your rubber peacock angelic whore. I'm a wrought-iron face upon the wall.
This was a song that was completely forgotten about. The co-producer Ken Scott had no memory of making it. It was not at all bootlegged, so it was really under the radar. And it kind of fits in with this group of songs that the drummer Mick Woodmansey said Bowie had composed in the fall of 1971 during a holiday in Cyprus, where he apparently made a lot of really good songs that were never developed further. This is maybe where songs like Black Hole Kids, which is kind of this mythical David Bowie song, no one knows, was it recorded, was it not recorded? This might be part of that thing. And what's interesting about specifically the Black Hole Kids is that song is mentioned in Woodmansey's memoir in the selected discography part. So it makes it seem like it was recorded, but there's no evidence of it actually having been recorded. According to the Rock and Roll Star box set, a song called Breakdown and another one called Only One Paper Left were just attempts to kind of just, I assume, just backing tracks were recorded and they didn't get further developed. Although Ken Scott contradicted that when he said he had a memory of recording Only One Paper Left. He might be referring here to a a track recorded by Hype, which was had Mick Ronson in it, had Mick Woodmansey in it, and then had Bowie's former producer Tony Visconti in it. They recorded a song called Only One Paper Left, so maybe that's what we're talking about when we're talking about that. There's another song that appeared in Bowie's notebook from the time called La La Gypsy Tongue, that was labeled a hit beside it, kind of like a Moonage Daydream was. Another song called Young Love, which was apparently about Ziggy from a fan perspective that didn't get developed. A song called Bald. It might be Bowie misspelling ballad though, because I feel like bald seems like bald as in B-A-L.
That was a strange. That's a strange name for a song.
Yeah, right? I don't know what that would mean. And then another song called On the Game. Anyway, those are just some of these peripheral Ziggy tracks that we don't know what happened to them, but we do know what happened to the song Sweet Head. It did get released, and there are a few different mixes of the song. So, the back in 1990, when Ryko wanted to put the song out as a bonus track, Bowie initially declined it. He didn't want it out, and then for whatever reason, he changed his mind a couple months later, and it was released. It does have a fan in Bowie author and specialist Nicholas Pegg, who calls the song sinister, exhilarating, dumb, and magnificent, and says, "It's quite beyond belief that Sweet Head was dropped from the album and lost for nearly 20 years." Andrew, would you agree? Is this a long-lost holy grail?
I'm going to say not really. There's a bit of a Chuck Berry thing, again, with the chorus, which makes sense given the influences that he was working with at the time. If Woodmansey thought it was so great, why was Bowie reluctant to release it? I don't know. It just... There's also some new slurs in here I didn't know about until I was preparing for this episode. So I learned some new ways to insult Latino people.
Right.
It strikes me as something that maybe he would have been happy to have it be forgotten.
Yes. Exactly,
I don't know if there's a community of people out there who are really fans of the song and agree with Peg that it maybe should have been on the album, but I wouldn't be one of them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's that great of a track. I like the middle 8. That's about it for me. Because I like the melody or whatever that's going on there. But it's not a song that's ever really stuck with me. I kind of find it to be a little bit forgettable. In fact, the only interesting thing is that it is the only song other than Ziggy Stardust to specifically mention Ziggy and not Lady Stardust.
Is that so?
So that is kind of an interesting thing. But again, here I think it's very similar lyrically to Goldmine, where
it's also about head.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. That's true. Between the two, if I had to pick one to put on the album, it would be Velvet Goldmine.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, I think that's an easy choice.
And thank goodness this didn't end up being a concept album about head, I guess.
No, there's almost enough songs here that we could...
Maybe it was a scenario where there were so many to choose from, and we can only really slot in one or two. Like
they could have that guitar cunnilingus photo being on the album cover.
So in terms of the other mixes, there's a 2003 mix, which is pretty unmemorable, I would say.
See my eyes of blocked emotion. See my tremble, see my fall.
And then there's the 2022 mix, which basically just starts off acoustically, and then the whole song picks up with the first chorus.
Where the posters are torn by the mucking gangs, by the faggy park and the burnout vans. I've got 99 years of playing in the dark and I'm far too young to lie.
In the initially released version, that the electric guitar, bass, and drums are in the song the whole time. Ken Scott said he stripped the song down at the beginning just to give it more of a 1950s feel, but I don't think that really does anything to make the song any better. So
there you go.
Yeah. Next, we're going to talk about It's Gonna Rain Again. This is another song that was quickly abandoned during the Ziggy sessions.
So second to my easy chair, grooved around Market Square. Everybody said I looked and said, it's gonna rain again.
lyrically, it's kind of interesting. It seems to be talking about someone being drugged by a doctor and then drugged by a sheriff.
I had to say, I had no idea what he was saying.
Yeah.
When I listened to this the first time, I had to go look up the lyrics.
Yeah.
Like, it was incomprehensible. It sounds like he's singing a tunnel or something. It was really, it was not great vocal quality.
You know, I think you gotta get some better headphones because you're talking about he's singing in the back of a concert hall.
Yeah, right. Yeah, in the back of a room. It's a.
I don't think the songs are mixed that.
I mean, you know, though we are talking about undeveloped tracks, and so much mixing actually goes into making a track sound good, no matter what speakers you're listening to it through. So yeah, perhaps listening to these through earphones doesn't do it any kind of justice. Maybe it takes away from whatever it was actually, the level it was mixed to.
Yeah. Okay. Other than, I guess, Bowie's vocal quality, do you have anything else you want to say about this song?
I don't have much to add on this one.
I think it's fun, personally.
Yeah?
I thought this was an enjoyable outtake. It was first released in 2024 for the Rock and Roll Star box set, so that was the first time I heard it. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it reminds me a lot of what he was doing in 1969, 1970. So I can see why it was obviously abandoned, because it was, you know, going too far back in what Bowie had already done. But I don't know. Whenever this song comes on my shuffle, I enjoy it.
Fair enough.
The other song we're going to talk about is Almost Grown.
Don't hang around with no mom. Got myself a little job. Gonna buy a little car. And I'm my girlfriend in the park. Don't bother us, leave us alone. Anyway, we almost through.
Another Chuck Berry cover. Bowie recorded it for the BBC. It's, yeah.
It's a Chuck Berry cover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I prefer the Chuck Berry version of this song, which has that classic rock and roll piano on it. It also has backing vocalists like Etta James and Marvin Gaye on it, so that's another wonderful
goodness.
thing. Yeah, right.
Wow,
yeah.
that's incredible backing vocals
exactly.
then.
Whereas Bowie's version does not have those.
Yeah, no,
vocals, so.
that alone probably knocks it down a couple notches.
And they cut out the final verse of the song with a guitar solo instead. It's not very memorable.
Well, what a flat note to end those songs. And the last song we're going to talk about, we're not a fan. It didn't really do it justice.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, so what I want to just ask about having you guys listen to these different songs and versions that you weren't familiar with, because The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars was an album you guys knew
Definitely,
well, right? So listening to songs from that era that are, you know, it's kind of your first listen to, how do you think those experiences compare to each other?
Like, it puts the album into the context of some of Bowie's other work from that period. I would say preparing for this episode was like listening to a bunch of songs, right?
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't an album, and you listen differently when you are listening from that perspective. But I would like to go back now and play the album again.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I feel like it definitely feels like there was some experimentation going on with the theme of the album and also overall the rest of David Bowie's artistry, just in the breadth of music he would eventually make. And it goes to show a lot of his influences, which I had never ever considered before. So that alone gives me a new appreciation for a lot of the music that ended up on the album. Yeah, I can definitely agree with a lot of the songs not ending up on it. And I mean, it's so ingrained in the greatness that I can't argue that the track listing should have been any different, and any of these other songs should have made it in place of any of the others, besides maybe It Ain't Easy.
Yeah.
But no, it's just it kind of. Yeah, it makes sense now, the whole process they went through and how they ended up at the final product.
Aaron, now that you've gone deep into these cuts, do you listen to the album differently?
I don't know. I think listening to the tracks specifically for this episode, I feel like I appreciated them a lot more, because, you know, I was really listening with like not just as like, oh, this was a song that was left off the album. So already you're kind of going with the mindset that it's not as interesting, right? Or you're going into the mindset of like, oh, would this be the best track that was a hidden gem left off, right? So then you're kind of building it up to be too much. But just listening to it, like, just listening for like lyrical differences and different mixes and really hearing the bones of these songs made me appreciate them a lot more. The album itself, I don't know if my opinion has really changed on it, but I
you liked it before.
And that album is so
it's totemic.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't imagine it being changed really in any way. But I think you hit on something. Hearing the bones of the songs and the development of them, gives me a new appreciation for just like how good the final product became.
Yeah, certainly. Well, then that's a wrap. You can find us at Battlecries and Champagne, AND, at outlook.com. You can find us on Instagram, Battlecries and Champagne Podcast, and you can find us on YouTube as well.
Thanks for making us part of your day, and until next time, stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening, and thanks so much again for Aaron for guiding us through this. I hope everybody enjoys it. And if you're looking forward to the next episode, we will be jumping forward to 1975 when we listen to Young Americans, where it was brought to a whole new audience in America. David Bowie exploded there, and it's going to be exciting. I can't wait for it.
Don't forget to keep your hat warm.
Please come a while.